I was a real, nutcase. I was crazy. It was more than drugs. It's really always about more than...
For decades, Rob Reiner has been known as one of Hollywood's most versatile directors, but one of his darkest and most unsettling works came when he stepped into psychological horror. The crime scenes in his film Misery remain some of the most disturbing ever put on screen, not because of excessive blood, but because of how quietly real they feel. What makes these scenes unsettling isn't just violence, but control, isolation, and the slow realization that escape may not exist. Beneath the surface of this story lies a series of disturbing details that many viewers miss the first time around. Details that turn an already tense movie into something far more disturbing once you truly understand them. The isolated setting. One of the most disturbing aspects of the crime scene in Misery is its location. The entire story unfolds in an isolated farmhouse buried under snow, completely cut off from the outside world. There are no neighbors, no witnesses, no help. This isolation isn't just a background detail, it's part of the crime itself. The setting turns the house into a prison without bars. From the moment Paul Sheldon wakes up there, the audience realizes something is wrong. Isolation becomes a weapon. The snowstorm isn't weather, it's a barrier. Every second spent inside that house feels like time stolen from reality, making the crime feel endless and inescapable. The false act of kindness. One of the most disturbing elements of the crime scene is how it begins with kindness. Annie Wilkes doesn't appear violent at first. She appears caring, almost gentle. She rescues Paul, feeds him, talks to him softly. This false compassion is what makes the situation terrifying. Criminal behavior doesn't always start with aggression. Sometimes it begins with comfort. That emotional manipulation creates confusion, making it harder for the victim to recognize danger. The audience slowly realizes that the kindness is not generosity, but ownership. Paul is not a guest, he is a possession. The locked reality. The moment Paul understands he cannot leave, the crime fully reveals itself. His legs are shattered, his body immobilized, and his wheelchair becomes a symbol of helplessness. The locked doors are not always shown, but they are felt in every frame. This is a psychological prison disguised as care. The disturbing detail here is how control is enforced quietly. There are no chains, no cages, yet escape is impossible. The crime scene exists not because of visible restraints, but because every choice has been taken away. The obsession factor. Annie's obsession with Paul's fictional character is what fuels the crime. She doesn't see him as a human being, she sees him as a creator whose purpose is to serve her fantasy. This detail adds a deeply unsettling layer. The crime isn't motivated by money or revenge. It's driven by entitlement. She believes she deserves access to him, to his work, and even to his body. That entitlement turns fandom into something dangerous. It exposes how obsession, when unchecked, can justify cruelty in the mind of the obsessed. The typewriter as evidence. One of the most chilling details in the crime scene is the typewriter. It becomes both a tool and a weapon. Annie forces Paul to write under threat, turning creativity into captivity. Every keystroke represents coercion. Writing, which once gave Paul freedom, now becomes forced labor. The clacking of the keys becomes the sound of survival. This detail is disturbing because it transforms art into evidence of control. The pages he writes are not expressions, they are ransom notes made of fiction. The violence without blood. What makes the violence in this story so disturbing is how restrained it often is. Rob Reiner deliberately avoids excessive gore, choosing instead to focus on psychological impact. When violence does occur, it is sudden, personal, and unforgettable. The infamous leg injury scene isn't just shocking, it's symbolic. It represents total domination. Mobility, independence, and hope are taken away in a single moment. The restraint in how this scene is filmed makes it more horrifying than graphic imagery ever could. The domestic crime scene. Another unsettling detail is how ordinary the environment looks. This is not a dark basement or abandoned warehouse. It's a clean home with decorations, cozy furniture, and warm lighting. That contrast makes everything more disturbing. Crime doesn't happen in shadows here, it happens in a living room. This challenges the viewer's expectations of where danger exists. It suggests that violence can hide behind politeness, routine, and domestic normalcy. The psychological control. Annie doesn't rely on physical force alone. She controls information. She controls news access. She decides what Paul can know about the outside world. This manipulation of reality deepens the crime. When someone controls what you know, they control how you think. The film subtly shows how isolation and misinformation work together to weaken resistance. This mirrors real psychological captivity cases, making the crime feel disturbingly authentic. The mood of constant surveillance. Even when Annie isn't in the room, her presence is felt. Every creaking floorboard, every sound in the hallway suggests she could return at any moment. This creates a constant state of fear. The crime scene extends beyond physical space into the victim's mind. Fear becomes permanent. Sleep becomes dangerous. Silence becomes threatening. The tension never releases, and that emotional pressure becomes part of the punishment. The power reversal illusion. At times, Paul appears to gain small victories. He hides objects, he plans, he resists. But these moments are deceptive. The power imbalance never truly shifts. This illusion of control makes the situation even more disturbing, because hope itself becomes a trap. Each attempt at resistance increases the danger. The crime scene is designed to punish rebellion. Control must be absolute. The final confrontation. When violence finally explodes, it feels earned and horrifying. The confrontation is chaotic, desperate, and emotionally draining. There is no heroism, only survival. The crime doesn't end cleanly. It ends with trauma. Even after escape, the damage lingers. This final detail reinforces the realism of the story. Surviving a crime doesn't erase it. The psychological scars remain long after the physical danger is gone. The aftermath silence. One of the most haunting elements comes after the story ends. There is no celebration, no relief, just quiet. Trauma doesn't announce itself loudly. It settles in slowly. The ending suggests that survival comes with permanent psychological weight. The crime scene may be left behind physically, but mentally, it continues to exist. Why this crime feels so real? What makes this story so disturbing is how believable it feels. There are no supernatural elements, no monsters, just a human being exercising control over another. The crime feels plausible because it mirrors real-world cases of captivity, obsession, and psychological abuse. That realism is what makes it unforgettable. Rob Reiner's dark direction. Rob Reiner's direction is key to why this crime scene feels so powerful. He avoids exaggeration. He focuses on silence, pacing, and tension. The camera lingers, the moments stretch. The audience is forced to sit inside the fear. This restrained approach makes every disturbing detail land harder. The horror isn't shown, it's implied. Why this story still haunts audiences. Decades later, people still talk about this film because it taps into something universal. The fear of losing control. The fear of being trapped. The fear of kindness turning into cruelty. These themes never age. They evolve with society, making the story feel relevant even today. The real horror beneath it all. At its core, this is not just a story about crime, it's about power. Who has it? Who abuses it? And how easily it can be hidden behind a friendly face. The most disturbing detail of all is that nothing supernatural is required. Everything that happens could happen in real life. The crime scene in Rob Reiner's film remains one of the most disturbing in cinema history because it doesn't rely on spectacle. It relies on psychology, control, and fear. Every detail is carefully constructed to make the audience uncomfortable in a quiet, lasting way. It reminds us that the most terrifying monsters are often human calm, polite, and hiding in plain sight.